Hello guys, Four Finger here and welcome to another video. Now today we are going to talk about warriors in TBC PvP. So I'm going to explain everything that you need to know about the class, what are the best comps in arena, race, talents, macros, add-ons, all of that good stuff. So if you do want to play warrior in TBC and especially in arenas, stick a while and let's get started.
You are not prepared.
Okay, so first of all, we are going to talk about races. Now, when it comes to races, it's really important what you go for in TVC, especially as a warrior, because it's going to give you advantages in certain scenarios depending how you use them. And I'm only going to talk about the best ones. I'm not going to cover every single one, only the ones that I would go for. Now, depending on your faction, your choices will be limited, but here are my thoughts and why I would go for the each. Now, if you are on the horde side, I would go with an orc, mainly due to having 15% stun resist from your racial passive, and on top of it the Blood Fury, which is a really good attack power benefit that you can get. Now it does have a downside, which is 50% healing reduction for while it's active, but just keep in mind that it does not stack with other healing reduction sources. So for example, if you already have aim shot, mortal strike or rogue wounds that are stacked up to 5, only the greater one is going to be applied, meaning 50% healing reduction should be the maximum. Now this is how it works on private servers, I think this is how it worked on retail. It's been a while if anybody can confirm this, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But either way, orc should be your best option as a horde player. Now torrents might be nice because of their extra attack range and maybe stunt, but I would stick with an orc, that's my suggestion. Now if you are Alliance, you would definitely want to go Gnomes, and overall I do think that Gnomes are kind of the best choice, mainly due to their racial active, which is Escape Artist. Now this is a really useful racial ability to have, because there will be so many mages, druids, and it's even useful against the rogues as well, but pretty much this helps you escape from any route, novas, slows, also like hamstring proc, wing clip proc. You can remove all of those movement impairing effects. So it's like an extra trinket in certain scenarios, so it's really good to have, and most people, especially in high rating, will be gnomes, like guaranteed. And other possible like honorable mentions when it comes to alliance is probably a dwarf. Dwarves are also really good because of their poison immunity and bleed immunity while their stone form is active, but I would definitely stick with a gnome, as I said. So that's pretty much all about races. You can probably check all the other actives and passives on Google if you're interested, but I don't think they're worth mentioning, so let's just jump to the next topic. Okay, so the next topic is going to be on talents and weapon choice. Now when it comes to talents, there are two viable choices that you can go for, and both of those you can go either for sword spec or for the mace spec. Now in general, mace spec should be better in 2 versus 2, while sword is better against some comps in 3 versus 3, while against others mace is still better. Now the thing is, people usually run maces no matter what for the first 2 or 3 seasons, because the crafted mace that you can make, the Herald of Thunder, let me just show you here 1 second, is giving you a chance to proc a stun for 4 seconds, and internal cooldown does not share with the talent proc stun. So it's basically, you can chain up to like 7 seconds stun on somebody if they do not drink it, and it's just really big, plus you generate some extra rage from talent as well. So overall, that's why mage should be superior in 2 versus 2 and also in 3 versus 3 for first 2 seasons, and after it kind of like, it's more kind of a preference thing after that. So like first 2 seasons you go with a mace, and when the full season comes out you can go for sword in 3 versus 3 and still keep maces in 2 versus 2, and then in last season when brutal gear is out, some people like to go with the sword spec when they pick up Apollyon sword from the Kill Jaden. I'm not one of those people. I always prefer maces in 2 versus 2 and even in 3 versus 3. Only if I play with shaman I generally go for swords. So if you have a shaman in the team, go with the sword, because Wind Fury proc combined with the chance to get an extra hit with the talents is just really big. So that's generally the plan that I follow. But if you're a beginner and you don't play with any shamans, just stick with the mace in both 2 versus 2 and 3 versus 3. Herald of Thunder is gonna be a huge reward, and just keep in mind that also it has 3 stages, so when you make the first one Thunder, it won't have the effect, but after you farm other mods and get 8 primal nethers from heroics, you can actually make the first mace like early on if you decide to farm it. And then the last piece is Storm Herald, which you can get from SSC by farming 5 vortexes and then crafting it as well. The difference between Deep Thunder and Storm Herald is just base damage and stats. You don't get anything extra when it comes to stuns. So the talents were displayed on the screen as you saw, and in general, when you are looking at the difference between Deep Arms 3 spec, which Endless Rage, and the other spec being the Sweeping Strikes and Weapon Mastery, my usual preference goes to the Endless Rage. Reason behind that is because you can use 2 weapons and actually switch them, make a macro to switch weapons, and if you put a second enchant on your switch weapon to be a weapon chain, you can still get 50% disarm reduction that you usually would from the weapon mastery, so it loses a little bit of value, and that extra rage that you're getting from the Endless Rage is really big. When it comes to 3 versus 3, that's where Sweeping Strikes can see more play, but it's only against certain comps, so in general I'm kind of always sticking with the Endless Rage, unless, like before I mentioned, if you have a Shaman you go Sword and you go Sweeping Strikes, and with good RNG you can just burst out tons of DPS and then it's really good. So yeah, that's my general advice, and let's just move on to the next section. So the next thing on the menu is going to be gear and gear stats. Now when talking about gear stats and requirements, there are not that many in TBC. You pretty much just wanna go for the hit cap, which is 5%, and that's a minimum of 79 hit rating. After reaching that 5%, you're pretty much gonna go for strength and critical, and you don't really even have that many options. So only thing that you get later on is armor penetration, and if I remember you get it with the Vengeful season, and then it's gonna be on your gear in Brutal season as well, and you can't really avoid it, it's just gonna be on your main set pieces no matter what. And my general thoughts to armor penetration is it's really decent to have against cloth and maybe leather users. When it comes to mail and plate, it loses value because armor penetration works a little bit differently in TBC than it does later on in Breath and later expansions. It's just removing the flat amount. And the thing with armor is the more armor you have, the less value it gives. So for example, removing 3k armor from somebody who has 10k armor is not going to be nearly good as removing 3k armor from a 3k priest, for example. The difference is between like 27% damage increase to like 6 or 7% damage increase. It's really substantial. So armor penetration, like I said, is great against clothers, not great against people with a lot of armor. Now, some people, like especially in the last season, take some armor penetration pieces from Sunwell because overall they just give a lot of pure stats, and that's mostly the ring from Marauder Twins and maybe helmet from Kill Jaden, and that's pretty much it when it comes to armor penetration of pieces. Good to have, like I said, it depends who you play against, decent stats. So in general, get the hit rating and then focus on strength and critical, and you're gonna be fine. Now if you guys want beast lists, I can compose those for each season really quickly, just let me know in the comment section. Now that being said, only thing I forgot to mention is even though you get 5% hit cap from the 79 rating, you are still not gonna be able to 100% hit mages, frost mages and druids with insect swarm, because they have talents that either reduce your hit directly or just reduce the chances for you to hit them like mages do. So yeah, get 5% hit rating, you don't need more, and then focus on strength and critical, and that's pretty much it. Next topic. And let's just do macros real quick. I'm not gonna waste too much time on this to not make video too long, so I'm just gonna explain them real quick. This is pretty much all the macros that you will need. You can of course add more focus macros later on, but the principle is going to be the same. I'm just showing you the base, how base macros work, and then you can add anything you want over to your preference. First two macros are really simple. They're pretty much just gonna make sure that you are attacking a target constantly, because sometimes when you switch targets in arena it might stop your attacks, and just putting this on Mortal Strike and hamstring your main abilities pretty much, it's gonna make sure it never stops. Next macro I have is my interrupt macro, and what it does is if I'm in my Berserker stance, it's just gonna use pummel. If I'm in my battle stance, it's gonna transfer me to Berserker stance and use pummel. But if I'm equipping a shield and I'm in either defense or battle stance, it's gonna use shield bash. Now, only difference between shield bash and pummel is that shield bash actually gives you 2 seconds of extra lock on the target. So if you interrupt with pummel, it's only gonna lock that school of spell for 4 seconds, whilst shield bash is going to be for 6 seconds. So if you're in a situation where you can use shield bash, go for it, it's way better than pummel. Next macro is pretty simple, it's just my cast defense stance, it's cast spell reflection. This is pretty much what you're gonna use against any CC, polymorph, cyclone, frostbolts. You just, whenever you see it about to finish, never like prematurely cast it, just wait till it's like 0.2 seconds before the cast finishes and then go for it. Most people will try to bait this out from you, but you will get the hang of it over the time, when to pop it, when not to, and things like that. Next macro is just for me to switch stances from Berserker to Battle stance, and if I was already equipping a shield, this is gonna make sure that I'm using my 2-hander. Those 2 overpower macros are pretty simple, I mostly use them against rogues, and in general it's okay to have. One of them I'm using in my Berserker stance and it's just gonna send me to Battle stance and proc overpower, while other one I use against rogues in duels mostly and sometimes in arena is if I'm in my defensive stance and I get a dodge on a rogue. I'm usually just gonna spam this macro and it's gonna go to battle stance, equip my 2-hander weapon, hit with overpower, and then I will return back to my shields. So that way you get a decent crits in on a rogue and then you keep defense up and things like that. Next thing is by my classical weapon switch. If you have same weapons, I can give you a few examples in the video description on how to do replacements for the same weapons. Disarm, simple disarm macro, go defense stance and disarm. This is my focus target interrupt, so when you have somebody on the, for example, if you have anyone on the focus, let's just put like me, and you can literally move it wherever you want. So this macro is gonna make sure that you don't have to target that other person to interrupt it, but everybody should know how focus works if you are gonna play arena. Then you have intercept macro that I use in my defense stance, and pretty much whenever I'm like, if I spell reflected and I instantly wanna charge somebody before I get CC'd, I'm just gonna spam this macro real quick and it's gonna save me like 0.1 second, which sometimes can be literally a game changer. Now the next thing is something I just use in battlegrounds. It's just gonna pop both my health stone and my healing potion if needed. This is just pop both trinket and the dead wish at the same time, but keep in mind that in 2 versus 2 I mostly do not use DPS trinkets, because there are so many comms that can kill you pretty quickly and not go for your druid but actually kill you, like Shadow Priest rogue, or pretty much any rogue priest spec is going to go for warrior kills instead of a druid. So having that extra battle master, what is this guy doing? Talking about macros, but having that extra 1.7k HP on your button is really nice to have. Next thing I have is the intervene macro, and you should definitely make, like, if you're playing freeze, you should make one more. You should just put party 2 here to target your second party member, and what this does is just cast intervene on your second or first party member without having to target them, so it's gonna save you a lot of time. And then lastly, it's just my focus target intercept macro. It's not, there's maybe a few more macros that you can use. I just figured out that I don't really need anything over this. I'm capable of doing every single ability at the times that I want with the macros that I have. If you have preferences to have like to DPS the focus target while not switching the main target, you can always make macro for Mortal Strike, Hamstring, whatever you need, and just put target focus exists and then just type the name of the ability, and it's pretty much simple as that. So that's all when it comes to macros, and I'm gonna waste too much more time on it. I already spent 5 minutes, so let's just go to the next section. So the next thing on our list is going to be add-ons. Now when talking about add-ons, keep in mind there are going to be way better options and choices once TBC Classic launches, so you probably won't need a bunch of those listed here, so I'll be really quick and just tell you what I'm using. Only thing that you want to make sure is when now loading add-ons that you have all the information you need. You want to know enemies cooldowns, diminishing returns, trinkets, and all of that other good stuff. And also like any optimization that helps you realize things faster, like nameplate debuffs or buffs or cooldowns. All of those are really good to have, and they will definitely help you out in arenas. Now, first add-on that I have here is Action Bar Saver. It just saves your bars, so if you respec in TBC, you don't have to place the spells back at their usual place. You can just use this add-on and save a lot of time. Arena Live, it's pretty much an add-on that's gonna cover the plates from target, party members, and yourself as well, so you can display enemy trinkets and party member trinkets and racials and stuff like that. It's a cool add-on to have. I just prefer X-Pearl for some reason. I use it for the longest of time, and I'm probably gonna change both those up when TBC Classic is out. Atlas Loot is, everybody knows Atlas Loot, just to check the jobs from the bosses. You don't need this in Arena. Bartender is my add-on of preference when it comes to bars. There's like millions of add-ons like this. They are just gonna be there to optimize your bars to look the way that you want them to look. Combat Log Cleaner is just gonna clean your logs and make sure that all the macros are working fine. Gladi, this is the main add-on in TBC. This add-on shows you the enemy plates in Arena, so you can see their trinkets, you can see their diminishing returns on them, so you can know when to CC them again for full duration, and you can also see their cooldowns, cast bars, all of that good stuff. And plus it gives you an option to keybind any mouse buttons to do specific actions on the click if you position yourself on top of that plate bar. So you can pretty much make a macro that your left click is gonna polymorph if you're left on that target where your mouse is standing by using Gladi. It's really big. You should definitely download it and play around with it. It has so many options, and like I said, using keybinds for some spells and macros or even putting a focus is really good to have. Icicle, this is an add-on that shows the cooldowns of enemies on top of their nameplates. So pretty much same thing Gladi does, but it's gonna be in your face. And let's say Druid uses bash on you and you're a warrior and trying to kill him, you can know exactly when that bash will be back just by looking at those nameplates and killing the Druid. It's good to have, it's in your face. Those two add-ons are not important, they're just there to make sure others are working fine. Lose Control, this great add-on to have. It's pretty much like a CC indicator on you and your party members, so you can pretty much make huge or small icons depending on preference to tell you when your party member is CC'd and how long they're CC'd. And you can do the same thing on yourself. If sometimes you don't realize that you've been rooted or something like that, you can see that by this add-on. Only CC is just a countdown add-on, everybody knows about this already. It's just gonna show numbers on your cooldowns. Party ability bars, one of the must-have add-ons. This is going to show all the cooldowns that your party member has. So in Arena you can exactly know when your druid has bash, when he has feral charge, when he has like innervate, all the good things. Power auras is something that I'm using because there are no great working weak auras on private servers so far, but I'm sure weak auras will be working just fine when Classic is out. Samuel for TBC is my swing timer. Once again, once weak aura is out, you won't need this add-on. You can do it all in weak auras. You can make swing timers there as well. Shadow Side timer. This is my add-on that displays the time left on the eyes that spawn in Arena, so you can pick up the gems and find rogues and druids in stealth. Sound Alerter, great add-on to have. This one is really useful, especially when warrior is trying to disarm you. You can hear when he's going defensive stance, you can instantly switch weapons and only get half the duration. So it's just gonna announce all the CCs and the cooldowns by basically a robot voice in game, and it's just gonna tell you like defensive stance, shield slam and things like that. It's just gonna make sure that you hear everything that your opponent is doing, so great add-on. Speedy actions, another one of those great add-ons. You pretty much, every time you press a spell, usually you have to lift your finger off before it goes off. What speedy action does is, same second you press a button, the spell is instantly going off. Really good to have, especially in arenas because timing is everything. And then lastly, it's my X-Pearl, and it's just basically my just for frames, for target frames, party frames, player frames, all that good stuff. This is just my preference because I use it for like 10 years in PvE and 3 years in PvP. Like I said, Arena Live is probably better than this, I just like it, it's my preference. Plate Buffer, one of those also decent add-ons to have. What it does is displays the debuffs of your choosing. You can put what you want to see and not on top of the nameplate, so you can see how long you have on Hamstring, how long you have on Fear, and all of that other good stuff. If you have any questions or if you would like to know about certain add-ons in TBC, I know them all, so just ask me. Oh, nice. So just ask me and I'll be more than happy to help you out. And let's just go for the arena comps, and I'm going to conclude the video, and hopefully it wasn't way too long. And finally, let us talk about arena comps, my general advices, and your standing as a warrior in TBC. Now, first of all, before we get in any of those, if you are a warrior, you need to understand you're not going to be rank 1 in either 2 versus 2 nor 3 versus 3. Reason behind it, as you will notice the trend of rogues and resto druids, or rogue and discipline priest being first in 2 versus 2 almost through the entire expansion. And when it comes to 3 versus 3, like RMP is just really godly when played on high levels. You just won't stand a chance against those teams, but if you can avoid those teams and farm others, you can get high ratings and you can maybe try to wiggle your way into the top spots. You just have to accept that rogues are better than you in every single way when it comes to TBC. And you just have to minimax warriors to the bone if you want to go for the high ratings. Like, that's why I said Gnome is really important, because their racial ability is just a huge edge in most matchups. And if you do not minimax like everything from intervenes to spell reflects to line of sighting, all of that good stuff, you are not gonna climb high as a warrior. It's all about those small things. Your toolkit is not huge, you don't have any like reliable CC that you can use constantly. It's pretty much only an AoE fear that can be countered by tremors, by every single undead, by like so many fear wards. There are so many things that can just ruin your day, so you can't really CC people and count on CC to carry you. It's all about like minimaxing the other abilities that you have in your toolkit. Now, when talking about those abilities and what's the best classes to play with, when it comes to 2 versus 2, you don't have too many options. The best one for you is definitely a Resto Druid, and most, like, the best warriors in 2 versus 2 will be playing with the Resto Druid 100%. Second team behind that, I would say Resto Shaman Warrior. They can reach decent ratings, but similar to the Resto Druid and the Warrior, they get countered by quite a few teams, and I'm gonna mention those teams in a second. And then lastly, only thing I've reached high ratings with besides Resto Shaman and Resto Druid was with the Warlock. Now that's a really weird comp to play, because what usually happens, like, you kill one of theirs and then your Warlock is left 1v1. Now if it's against the DPS, Warlock usually wins, because they are just decent in 1v1, especially against other people who already use their cooldowns. So rogues would generally beat them in 1v1, but if they already wasted their preparation and other big cooldowns, warlocks can win them. So it's decent comp, but you're not gonna go high with it, because if people just like kite you around for a bit to kill either you or a warlock, you already lost. So I would say stick with the Resto Druid if you're gonna go high, and if you like those fun Wind Fury procs, go with the Resto Shaman. Now, when it comes to 3 versus 3, you don't have too many options, but you have a few good ones. The ones that I play the most and also reach high ratings with is the usual one, Warlock, Resto Druid and a Warrior. I've tried Enhancement Shaman, Resto Druid and a Warrior, but those comps get really cucked by mages, like AoE blizzarding both you and the Shaman is just like making both of you like useless, and there are a few other classes that just make you immobile and you can't do much about it, but against every like Warlock and things like that, the Enhancement Shaman Warrior is really decent with Resto Druid. But high ratings, stick with the Warlock and Resto Druid, and you can see a decent like climb. But like I said, again, RMP should beat you if they are on the same skill level. What else is there to say? It's pretty much it. Like, warriors are fun to play. The rogues are just superior to them. That's why you will struggle reaching the rank 1 spots unless you avoid those good rogue comps. And yeah, if you guys have any general questions about any of the abilities, macros, add-ons, I've tried it all, I've seen it all. I've had decent ratings on a bunch of servers, but I was never on top. Like, if you want to learn like a bunch of like warrior things from somebody who is really great, you can try AZ God X. He's a decent warrior. I've only seen 1 or 2 better warriors than him so far, and I was always in like top 5 warriors on the server. I was never rank 1 warrior, but always in top 5. So I pretty much know how the game works. I know all the mechanics, know what to do. It's just that kind of like what you have in hands. It's all about reactions and how you react to certain things. So it's pretty much the thing that you need to practice the most. Like you need to know your arena partner really well. You need to like talk a lot, and you can't climb high without the voice comm. You should know that already. You just need to make sure that you and your partner really have a feel to what other person is going to do, and then to like play your toolkit to the maximum. That's pretty much it, guys. I guess thanks for watching. Sorry if the video was a bit too long, and for any questions you can ask me in the comment section, and see you boys in the next one.